They say hard work always pays off. But what happens when the rules are different for you? For 3 long years, Darius Green gave everything to Maybridge Financial. He was the first one in, the last one out. He saved accounts, trained new hires, built systems that saved the company money. But no matter how much he delivered, he was always overlooked, smiled at, thanked, then dismissed, passed over for promotions in favor of less qualified co-workers who all had something in common: connections and privilege. And none of them looked like him. His manager, Mark Ellison, was the type who liked to remind people who was in charge. He was sharp-tongued, always smiling with his lips, but never with his eyes. He praised Darius in private, but never in front of the execs. When promotion time came, Mark gave him the same tired speech. "Keep working hard, your time's coming." But Darius knew better, especially when Jake Palmer, the same guy who once nearly cost the company a lawsuit, was handed the promotion Darius had spent months preparing for. And yet, Darius didn't argue, didn't protest. He simply nodded and walked away. What no one knew was that Darius wasn't just another employee. He had a past no one could see coming. You see, Darius wasn't just Darius Green. He was Darius Langston Green, the grandson of Harold Langston, founder of Maybridge Financial, and the only son of Denise Langston, who owned 60% of the company. But Darius never used the name. He didn't want a shortcut. He wanted to earn his place, to know who respected him for his talent, not his bloodline. But that promotion snub, that was the last straw. After the meeting, Darius quietly took 2 weeks off. The office barely noticed. Mark signed the paperwork with a smirk, already moving on. But behind the scenes, Darius was gathering receipts. He met with board members, brought in HR data, compiled reports on racial bias, unethical promotions, misused bonuses. Every pattern, every overlooked complaint, every buried email. He didn't just come back from vacation, he came back ready for war. Then came Monday. The whole office buzzed. There was an emergency board meeting, executives flying in, suits in the lobby, and just as Mark laughed it off, brushing lint from his jacket, the doors opened, and there he was, Darius. Not in slacks and a tucked shirt, but in a custom-tailored suit. Confident, silent, powerful. Mark blinked, confused. "You're not supposed to be here." Darius didn't flinch. He placed a thick file on the conference table and said 5 words that made the entire room sit up. "I am now. Let's begin." What followed was a corporate takedown like no one had ever seen. Darius presented emails, performance metrics, comparisons that showed a clear and deliberate pattern of discrimination. While white, underperforming employees were fast-tracked, high-performing black and brown staff was stalled, dismissed, or quietly let go. And Mark was the central figure in over 70% of the flagged cases. The board sat in silence. No one defended Mark, because the numbers didn't lie. Within 24 hours, Mark was suspended pending investigation. HR was turned inside out. And Darius? He was offered a seat at the executive table, not because of his last name, but because, even in silence, he had proven he knew the business better than anyone in the room. But Darius didn't accept the offer. Not yet. Instead, he demanded a full audit of every department. He wanted transparency, equity, fairness, not just for him, but for every hard-working employee who'd been made to feel invisible. Because this wasn't just personal, it was systemic. That day, Maybridge Financial changed forever. And Mark, the man who once sneered at Darius's ambition, was now begging to keep his job. But just when Darius thought justice had been served, an anonymous message hit his inbox. No name, no subject, just this. You think Mark was the top. He was just the beginning. Watch your back. Because in a company built on power, there are always more secrets. And Darius was about to find out that some enemies wear the same last name. The day Mark Ellison was escorted out of Maybridge Financial, Darius thought it was over, that finally justice had been served. But that anonymous message changed everything. You think Mark was the top. He was just the beginning. Watch your back. Darius didn't know who sent it. No name, no IP trace, just a quiet threat. But something about it felt personal, like someone in the room had watched him win and wanted revenge. Still, he stayed focused. The board appointed him interim director of equity and culture. And for the first time in the company's history, diversity reviews weren't just about optics. Darius rewrote promotion protocols, launched an anonymous complaint system, and dug into hiring records that hadn't been touched in decades. Every step forward felt like reclaiming something stolen, not just from him, but from everyone who had been made to feel less than. And that's when the sabotage began. First, small things. Memos missing from meeting packets. HR reports Darius had signed off on suddenly rewritten. Then, confidential emails he never sent, showing up in company archives under his name. When he brought it up to the IT head, she looked him dead in the eye and said, "That's above my clearance." Above her clearance? Darius had full access, or at least, he thought he did. That night, he went home and logged into the old Langston family server, a place only family had access to. Buried in archived documents from his grandfather's early years, he found something odd. A private investment arm tied to Maybridge, one that hadn't been disclosed in years. One that funneled money through shell companies, fake contractors, and silent payouts. And the signature on those transfers? It wasn't Mark. It was someone far more dangerous. Denise Langston, his mother. The same woman who taught him to work twice as hard. The same woman who told him to stay humble. The woman who raised him to fight for justice was hiding a slush fund worth millions. And right there, in plain sight, was Mark Ellison's name. Not as a villain, but as a fall guy. A disposable pawn in a scheme Darius had never been meant to uncover. The room spun. Was this why his rise had been blocked? Why his name was left out of the Langston family trust for years? Had his mother known all along that he was working inside the very system she helped build, and corrupt? The next day, Darius confronted her. She didn't deny it. She didn't flinch. She simply said, "You think the company is yours now? Baby, I built this empire with blood. You're just a footnote." It wasn't rage in her eyes. It was warning. And suddenly, Darius realized. Mark may have been cruel, but Denise was calculating, cold, and he had just declared war on someone who had every reason to silence him. For good. Because that slush fund, it connected to politicians, judges, lobbyists, people who don't like exposure. And the message in his inbox? It wasn't a threat. It was a warning. Now Darius isn't just fighting for workplace justice. He's fighting to survive a legacy built on secrets, power, and betrayal. Because when your enemy wears your last name, who can you trust? What happens next will shake the Langston Empire to its core.